Hey y'all, welcome back to the Intuitish Podcast. I'm Tisha, your host, and also the CEO of Intuitish. And today we are going to be diving more into what Intuitish is and how is it that your intuition communicates with you so that you can begin to use it as a guide in your daily life. Now, before we get into this episode, I want to make it tradition around here to either pull a crystal or a card of the week that you can utilize as additional guidance in your life with whatever it is that you may be going through. Or if it doesn't apply to you on a personal level, you can just use it as additional information to support this episode. So, since we are in the full moon energy of Aquarius, I wanted to use this Moonology deck by Yasmin Bolin. I absolutely love this deck. This deck has helped me so much in my personal life. I've given readings to other people. I mean, this deck is straight and to the point. I just love it. So for those of you that are on YouTube, you will see me shuffling. But for those of you that are tuning in on the streaming platforms, then you can just enjoy this ASMR. All right, so we are going to pull a message for our collective, for our community. What messages do you have for today to support the message that we're going to be sharing today? And for those that are tapping into this episode, what messages do you have? And also surrounding this full moon energy of Aquarius, what messages do you have for our collective today? I also want to start doing readings, like collective readings on our YouTube channel. So if that's something that you're interested in, and I can also share it on the streaming platforms, we actually have our card already. And this is actually funny. I was just talking about this today. So the card is, I'll make sure I hold it up so that you all can see it. This is actually right on brand to what we're going to be talking about today. So this is the new moon in Gemini card, and it says communication is key, which is hilarious because what we're getting into today is, again, understanding the ways that your intuition can communicate with you so that you know the guidance it is trying to give you. So with this communication is key message, I feel like in whatever aspect this may apply to in your life, it's important that you express the things that you're feeling, which is funny because we are also in Mercury retrograde, right? I'm not a crazy astrologer, but if I'm not mistaken, the ruler of Gemini is Mercury, and it's all about communication. So even though we are in Mercury retrograde right now, we are kind of leaving out of the season of Mercury retrograde. For those of you that don't know, Mercury retrograde is a time for you to sort of go within, reflect, revise, do all the re's in your life, reassess, all of those things. So I think as we are stepping out of this Mercury retrograde energy, it's important that you express yourself and that you communicate clearly based on the things or the theme that you've experienced throughout this Mercury retrograde season over the past 3 weeks. And even after the Mercury retrograde period is over, we do have a post shadow period as well. So I think as we're kind of clearing through this energy, it's really important that you are clear and to the point, especially with the haze and the fogginess of Mercury retrograde. So that is the message that I have for you, and it relates so perfectly to this episode because we're talking about how your intuition communicates with you. What is intuition, but also how does it communicate with you? Okay, so for those of you that may have missed the first introduction episode, we put a definition to intuition. So if you missed it, to reiterate, the definition of intuition is the ability to understand something without conscious reasoning. So society will have you believing that the only way that you can gain understanding is through logic and reasoning. But there is another way, and that way is through your intuition. Now, again, there are many ways that your intuition can communicate with you, whether it's through synchronicities, for those of you that are spiritual, whether it's through your spirit guides, your thoughts, your emotions. There are an abundance of ways that your intuition can communicate with you, even to the point of arranging and orchestrating different events in your life. But today, we are going to talk about one of those ways, and that is your emotions. The reason why we're going to focus on emotions is because on a very basic level, this is something that we all experience. So I feel like this is such a ground or foundational area for us to focus on, and then we can build on top of this idea of intuition. It's really important for me that we merge this information and this idea of intuition with practicality, because this is one of those subject matters that can easily get lost in the woo-woo of it. And although I would like to say that a subdivision of our brand is spirituality, because again, we just introduced cards on our channel and we want to talk about crystals, I think it's really important that we understand that these are just tools and physical manifestations of this energy. But for me, it's really important to focus on the more tangible aspects to help create the understanding to the intangible aspects. In this case, that being our intuition. So, in addition to emotions being a great way to connect with your intuition, when you think about how people describe intuition and what it is, they usually describe it as a gut feeling, right? Or inner knowing or a hunch. But most times you hear people say like, "Ooh, I just have this feeling, like I don't know what it is. It's just like this internal knowing." So I want to really just focus on the idea of this feeling and how your feeling and emotions can help you to tap into your intuition and understand what it is trying to communicate with you. How many times have something just popped into your mind and you cannot explain why, but you are 1,000% sure that that thought or that idea that popped into your head is undeniably true? That is your inner voice speaking to you. It is what is guiding you to make certain decisions in your life, and it is also what nudges you in certain directions, even when you cannot logically explain it. It is a life compass. That's exactly what your intuition and your inner voice is. It is a life compass that's helping to guide you in your life. I remember this one time when I was younger, y'all. Now, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. So, me and my childhood best friend at the time, Charlene, we would always go on these daily adventures. I would meet up at her house or she would meet up at my house first thing in the morning or early in the afternoon, and we would be out the entire day just walking around our neighborhood, cracking up, making jokes, and just allowing life to sort of lead and allow us to experience whatever the day had in store for us. And this one particular day, somehow we usually were walkers. Like at this time, if I had a Fitbit, we was for sure getting in our 10,000 miles. I mean, our 10,000 steps. So this one particular day, we ended up having bikes. And she decided that she wanted to go to a different neighborhood where some of her friends lived to visit that she hadn't seen in a while. So we ended up going over there, and y'all, we have never been to this part of Brooklyn in our entire lives. But we stayed there the entire day. And when it was time to come home, y'all already know, when you in a neighborhood that you don't know, especially at nighttime, everything looks completely different. We started biking our way back home, and y'all, I swear to you, we're biking, and then all of a sudden something in my spirit just made me completely stop. I completely stopped biking. Charlene was still biking a little ahead of me until she realized that I wasn't biking with her anymore. And then she turned around and came back and she was like, "What's wrong? Like, what's going on?" And I was like, "I don't know why, but something is telling me that's the wrong way home. Like, we're taking the wrong way home. Something is telling me home is this way. Like, we're supposed to make this left right here." And Charlene was like, "Tisha, no, we not. Like, we're good. Like, we're going the right way home." And I'm like, "Charlene," I was like, "I'm telling you, please, I need you to believe me. That's not the way home." I said, "I don't know why. I cannot explain it to you, but this is the way we're supposed to go home." At first, she was just like, "Girl, like, she just wasn't hearing me. But honestly, I was so strong. I felt so strong and so confident in this knowing that I would not let it go. Like, I stood firm. I was like, we have to go this way. And so eventually she was like, all right, come on, let's go this way. And sure enough, we ended up taking that way. And within a couple blocks, we seen a familiar street that we knew. And, from that street, we knew how to make our way back home to our neighborhood. And that is the perfect example of how your intuition can step in and help guide you. And it's just that sometimes we are more connected to our intuition than other times. When we think about this human experience, sometimes we feel very connected to ourselves, very connected to this life experience, very connected to our emotions. And then there are times where we are completely disconnected. We're completely disconnected from our emotions. We're completely detached and disconnected from this experience. And I think the more that we can find connection to our emotions is the more that we can tap into this source, this tool that we can use to guide us in our daily lives. Now, I do have some resources today. Funny enough, I was actually working on my mission statement for Intuitish, and I was talking about my personal journey and how I personally felt disconnected from my emotions. And in the process of me working on this mission statement, I heard a voice, I heard my voice basically speak to me in the form of a thought. So I think sometimes when we hear people say these things like, oh, I heard a voice, it's like, what voice? Where did the voice come from? The voice was a thought, right? But when it comes to your intuition, it's always going to be clear. It's like, I can't explain it other than to say it's always going to be very clear, and the knowing is going to be so sure that there are no doubts that that voice is speaking to you. You will never have to question. You will never feel any confusion. It will just feel like truth. The thought said, go get, ask and it is given. This book is amazing. So this is the book that I read that changed my entire life and kickstarted my entire journey leading me up to this point. I hadn't referred to this book or read this book in years. When I heard this book come to mind, I was like, huh? Like, what does this book have to do with anything right now? Especially, in relation to what I was saying about my mission statement. But it was such a clear, like I said, it was clear, it was undeniable that I heard, go get the book. I didn't get up and get it right away. I still was trying to work on my mission statement until that voice, it would not leave me alone. It was like, get up and go get the book. So I got up, I got the book, and now I'm holding on to the book and I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to read this entire book cover to cover, or is there some specific part of this book that I'm supposed to read? Where's my further guidance? What am I supposed to do? And I just heard open the book. Y'all, when I opened this book, I'm going to read this verbatim. I opened it to page 9, and here it is. Action It Is Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks. I opened the book to chapter 9, which is called The Hidden Value Behind Your Emotional Reactions. When I tell y'all, you cannot make this stuff up. In this part of the book, they start talking about how your 5 senses, touch, sight, smell, hear, and taste, are vibrational interpretations of your experience. Then she goes on to say that we have other sensors that helps us to understand our life experiences, known as our emotions. I'm going to read this part verbatim, and then we're going to talk about how this applies to your intuition. So it says, your emotions are your indicators of the vibrational content of your being in every moment. And so when you become aware of the feeling of your emotions, you can also be aware of your vibrational offering. And once you combine your knowledge of the law of attraction with your in this moment awareness of what your vibrational offering is, then you will have full control of your own powerful point of attraction. With this knowledge, you can now guide your life experience in any way that you choose. So In translation, because I also wrote this down, your emotions communicate information to you about your state of being. So when you are aware of your emotions, you can become aware of the energy that you are putting out there so that you can make a conscious effort to not only change it, but to intentionally guide the energy to being what you want it to be. Mm, mm, mm. How this relates to your intuition. Again, as we know, your intuition, we described it as a gut feeling or an inner knowing. So, what this passage breakdown was trying to tell me, what spirit, right? I refer to God, the universe, whatever your preference is. For me, I say spirit. So, in that moment, what my inner voice, but also spirit, was trying to communicate to me is that if we can say and describe our intuition as an inner feeling, then what that means is the more that we can understand our emotions and interpret them, the more that we can understand what our intuition is trying to communicate with us. Because if you are disconnected from yourself, if you are disconnected from your emotions, then that means that you are also disconnected from your intuition. And you are also disconnected from the inner voice that is meant to guide you in your life. Furthermore, as it stated, when you understand your vibrational offering, you can work to change it to intentionally help you to attract the things that you want in life. Meaning that once you get to a point of being connected with your intuition, being connected with your inner voice, being connected with your emotions, you can now essentially program yourself, program your energy, program your intention to help you attract the things that you want into your life. I want to give you an example of what this can look like for you personally. So let's just say, let's apply this to something work related. So let's say you have a project coming up at work. And it's really important for you to do a great job at this project because this project is tied to a promotion or a raise for you. And when you initially get to work, you start feeling really stressed out about this project. But you just take a moment and you breathe, you allow yourself to feel the emotions that you're feeling, right? The stress or the anxiety, and you shift your perspective or you shift your focus on something positive that your boss said to you, right? Like a compliment that your boss gave you at work. And you use that energy to change your current state, right? Your current state. So that takes you out of this place of being anxious and stressed into a place that makes you feel more confident and more qualified to do the job. So instead of spiraling down this path of feeling anxious and, allowing this one emotion at this one moment to get the best of you, you're processing it. And you take this good feeling from this compliment that your boss gave you at work and you start working on the project and you break it down into micro steps so that you can accomplish 1 through 10. And you periodically check in on your emotions to make sure you're good. But for the most part, you're at the point where you got this thing under control. This is an example of how you can essentially be in control, or I don't want to say be in control. At the end of the day, yes, you should be in control of your emotions, but I think it's more so about how you can intentionally shift the energy from one of spiraling with your emotions versus allowing yourself to experience and stay open to the process of your emotions. Because again, everybody has probably heard that emotions are energy in motion, which means that your emotions are constantly changing. One day you're going to be happy, you're going to be sad, you're going to be stressed, you're going to be anxious, you're going to be happy again. So I think it's about learning to allow yourself to tap into the flow of your emotions, which is actually the slogan for Intuitish. It's called Tap Into Your Flow, because more so than it's about trying to stop an emotion from happening. It's, what is this emotion trying to communicate to me? How can I use this in my favor? How can I use this for my highest good in this moment? So it's really about learning to understand what these emotions and these feelings are trying to communicate to you, and understanding that they're here to support you. They're here to help you. They're here to guide you. And I think when you start to shift your awareness and your understanding about your emotions into one that says, this emotion is here to give me something. This emotion is here to guide me. This emotion is here to lead me. It completely changes the game with how we look at emotions, but also how we can begin to now utilize this to help connect us with our intuition and ultimately get the things that we want out of life. Because in the scenario that I gave, now that the stress is gone, she is now applying her emotions and her feelings regarding the situation in a positive way. So that in spite of the scenario, whether we perceive it as negative or positive, it's still working in her favor. I hope that this helps you to understand how you can use your intuition as a guide through your emotions. I want you to think about it similar to driving in a car. Your emotions are the red, the yellow, and the green. And it's simply just trying to convey different messages to you. Whether that's, hey, you need to stop right now, take a moment to yourself. You simply need to slow down, or just go. Just continue to go with the flow. They're only meant to make you aware of something. That is it. And I also want you to remember that this is something that you are going to have to work with developing over time. You're not going to get this overnight. So be patient with yourself, and also understand that everybody communicates and understands their intuition differently. This is not a one-size-fits-all manual. I don't have the answers to how you specifically connect with yourself. For me, like I said, I can get a thought and I just have this inner knowing, this without a doubt knowing that this is my intuition speaking to me. But for you, it might be different. It might be another way that you connect with your intuition. So just be open to the process, because I feel like the hardest part of the journey is acceptance and just being where you are right now in this moment, and not trying to reach the next level of where it is that you want to be. Just learning to master the moment, but also accepting the present right now. I hope that this helps you to understand what your intuition is and how you can use it as a guide by tapping into your emotions. Thank you so much for joining me in today's episode. Again, remember to stay intuitive and trust your inner guide. Until next time, take care.